Hi, everybody. Welcome to our latest episode of The Anatomy of a Room, where we pull back the curtain on a beautifully designed room from one of our members and get all of the nitty-gritty insider scoop on how they got to that end result. I'm your host, Anne Corgan, a Seattle-based interior designer and co-founder of Annuaire, the platform that helps designers and vendors in the industry work better together. So, what does that really mean? Well, we've created a directory that simplifies collaboration, think pricing available after hours without a million different logins, allows for discovery of lots of new lines, reps, manufacturers, and fosters community. So that is why we're here today with our episode 3 guest, Sarah Lederman. Sarah is a New York-based interior designer who started her career interning for the legendary Bunny Williams and then later worked for AD100 designer Tom Shearer. But she has since gone off to launch her very own incredibly successful firm, Sarah Lederman Interiors. And she's been featured in publications such as Domino, House Beautiful, and Luxe Magazine, just to name a few. So we are so thrilled to have Sarah here today from New York.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So whenever we kind of kick this off, we love to just hear kind of in your own words a little bit about your aesthetic and your point of view for your firm.
I try not to pigeonhole myself too much into saying like, oh, I'm a traditionalist or I'm a modernist, because I really like a blend of a lot of different things, which I think is evidenced through my work. But one word that I always come back to is layered. I like a lot of textiles. I like a lot of textures. I love when clients are interested in art. And so I think layering is sort of like the key guiding principle for me. And then, scale, making sure the scale of things is right. I feel like that was really ingrained in me by mentors like Bunny and Tom. Like that was sort of first and foremost.
I love it. I know. I feel like you have such a great way of infusing art. I'm like dying to get into that, but we'll have to circle back. Okay, well, so today is fun because we are going to be talking about your office, which is also where you happen to be currently located right now. So we'll kind of be having like a live show and tell as well. So I think there's a lot that we can dig into here, but let's pull up sort of that main space, which I just think this is so fun because I feel like if somebody landed on this image, they would just assume it was someone's like beautiful sitting room or, a little snug off of their main living room, but it's really your office space. And I think that's what's so fun. I think this spot where you're actually sitting is just kind of across from that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I imagine that was intentional, kind of giving that warm, cozy feel to it.
I mean, I think because I primarily work in residential design, I wanted my office to feel like a place where if I had clients come here, they could really like see and feel the type of spaces that I create. And like you said, it feels very homey. It feels like you're coming into someone's apartment. I am lucky that I was given sort of just like a white box. I converted a 2-bedroom apartment into my office. So where I'm sitting right now is the conference room, and doesn't really feel like a traditional conference room. But I have a big table where I sit with clients, and then I wouldn't say the sofa gets used so much because we're not usually just like hanging out over there. But it just gives a warmth to the space, and makes it feel comfortable and cozy, and like you're like I could move right in.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, let's walk it back a little bit because we always show sort of this like final product, which is so lovely. But really, the point is to kind of dig into like how you actually got here. So you referenced it, but when you found this space, well, when did you find this space? How long have you been there?
I've been in this space for probably about 3 years now.
And so when you found it, I mean, it really was just like a white box with a couple of
100%, like probably painted decorators white. Not a single thing. The kitchen was super bare bones, the bathroom was super bare bones, and I was sort of like, okay, how do we make this feel like a charming, a place where a decorator would host clients, basically.
Right. So what is that process like for you? Whether I'm curious if it was similar to how you approach like a typical design project, or, did you have a place that you were kind of kicking off from inspiration wise, like a palette or something you feel like you had to have in there?
I think for me, first and foremost, I was looking for a place to store all of the stuff that I acquire. So I finally was like, okay, that screen that I bought on Cherish at 2 a.m. when I was like up in the middle of the night, well, that's coming here now because like I don't really have a place for that. And so like all these little things that I'd sort of collected over the years, like I had gotten this amazing Knoll conference table from a dealer in the Midwest that I saw on Instagram. And so I was like, great, that's going to be my conference table. And so, I think with clients, there's always like, okay, you're scheming, you're showing a completed mood board. I really try to think of it cohesively and all at once, whereas this was more of a like collected over time situation. And then I think the biggest transformation happened when the brand Tebow reached out to me and they were like, we want to partner with you on your space and you're welcome to choose any wall coverings, any textiles in our line, and showcase them in your office. And I mean, they have an amazing collection and I happen to love their grass cloths. I use them all the time. And so I think in the room that I'm sitting in, that was the biggest transformation was when the grass cloth went in, because I feel like it just makes it this like glowy, warm, textured space instead of just a white box.
I love it. Yeah. And I'd love to pull up, I think there's an image that shows what that space looked like, even with the sofa and everything, but before the wallpaper went in. Yeah, so there it is without, and then obviously that kind of final image showing it layered on. I think it's just like such an amazing transformation, and I think people can feel, sometimes it's like, is it really worth it? Just like, what's it really going to do? And I think that that is like, the proof is in the pudding right there for sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think that wallpaper is one of the most transformative things that you can do, and it doesn't have to be super expensive. I don't think that this one is like, one of their most expensive papers. But I've used it so many times since then because clients come in here and they're like, whatever this is, I want this in my house.
Yeah. I also think it's probably great. Like, I guess I don't know what the actual specific width of this product is, but sometimes with grass claws, the seaming and everything can be a little tricky and throw people off. But I feel like to just have it installed and show people what that looks like would be so
Mhm.
lovely. It's a showcase.
Definitely.
So was that overwhelming for you though at all to almost have like free reign of all of their options? I feel like I might go a million different directions and
I kind of came at this with the idea that I was going to do because I was familiar with their grass cloths and really like the product. I wanted to use them in all three of the rooms that I work in, partially because I feel like having a solid wall is kind of easier to look at fabrics for clients in rather than having like a super patterned wall. But then because I'm such a layerer and I like crave pattern all the time. I did that through the fabric that I used in the window treatment. So each room has a solid grass cloth kind of base. And then I played with pattern in the window treatments. So that was kind of the starting point, was really just like going through their entire library of grass cloths, and then also going through their prints for the windows.
I love it. Okay, so once you kind of have your inspiration and everything set, I mean, obviously similar to, oh yeah, there's that shot. I love that Roman shade fabric, so pretty. And this is such a nice kind of like warm entrance, I feel like, to this space with all the greens and kind of warmer colors. So I'm curious, so, typically with any design project, you're obviously working on the scheme, the inspiration, but then there's also the floor plan. And I imagine you didn't have to do like a really in-depth floor plan of this space, but did you consider using the rooms in any other different ways, or was it pretty clear to you that you wanted kind of this conference room and then
It was sort of logical for what most people would have used as the living room to be the conference room. I really wanted to make one of the bedrooms into my office, and I chose the one with the most natural light. And I chose a wall covering that was a little bit lighter in there and sort of fresh and easy to look at client schemes. And then the other office is a brown wall covering. And I really wanted that to be sort of a juxtaposition to the other two rooms and make it sort of darker and moodier. And like, to be totally honest with you, I use it mostly for storage. However, I do think I'm going to have another designer friend start sharing the space with me soon, and she's going to take that office. And I think it's really fun to like have, more of a collaborative atmosphere. I think is going to be really exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually share my office with a fellow designer, and it's been so fun. Like you can get so in your silo, but then to be like, am I crazy or what do you think about this? Or
A
it's so great.
100%. Like that's where my head is at. I'm like, I've been alone for too long and I need a friend.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, can we just like walk it back also for a second because it's very cathartic to hear, that you needed a space really just to house like some of your treasures that you'd accumulated along the way that maybe your family doesn't really want in the space. Because I too have kind of gotten to that point, and that was part of the reason for an office as well. So I'd love to know a little bit more. I feel like, there's kind of these basic like office type things, but I feel like you have so many layered things. Like I want to hear more about the chairs that you have in your space, and where you discovered those and little inside scoop.
So, like I said, there's an image that shows the screen that's in here, which has these like Italian like palazzo screen prints on it or something. And I saw it on Cherish and I was like, I just have to have that. And I ordered it and now it lives here. And I love it so much. I feel like it makes this room. But like everything that I find is just sort of like a middle of the night, or I'm on the Dixie Highway in Florida, which is where I found the chairs that I'm sitting in right now. And then I had seat pads made with Tebow fabric and they're super comfortable. And like, now I'm like, should I steal them for my new apartment and bring them there? It's all stuff that I was like, I have to have this thing and either I'll sell it to a client or it will be with me. So there you can see the Knoll dining table, that honestly I got for like way too little money, from a dealer in the Midwest. And, the sofa was a piece that my upholsterer had made as a sample, and I was like, I'll take it. So he reupholstered it for me. And then, the piece that's actually behind me right now, the little storage piece is an Urban Outfitters find. And it just like perfectly fit in between these two things. I love rattan. And then the two pair of shelves people asking about all the time, and they are just like grass cloth covered bookshelves from Made Goods. I found you can see one of the urns in the picture and also behind me right now. Those are a pair of vintage urns that I saw one of my favorite dealers in DC, Thomas Preston, post on Instagram. And I immediately messaged him and I was like, I have to have those. And then they just happen to be the exact same size as the CB2 column. So they're sitting on top of those. And then in my past job had worked with a florist who did really cool stuff with faux leaves and plants and would build these trees. And so I had him come and build the trees for each of the urns. So they are like forever, like I don't have to water them. And like people come in here and they're like, I cannot believe that that's a fake tree. Because I think when you think of fake plants, you're like, that's gross. But they really like, he came here and he wired each leaf and it looks very organic and it's made out of like manzanita branches. And, I love them so much. And people have offered to buy them from me so many times. And I'm like, I'm never selling the urns. I'm never selling the trees. Like they bring me a lot of joy when I come in here. And I feel like it feels sort of like spring in here all the time.
Totally. Oh my God, that's amazing. I never would have even thought to ask. That's so
Mhm.
cool. And the Urban Outfitters piece, is giving me like, that Panoply shop in LA. That's
Yes, I love that shop.
so great, but that's amazing. Love a high-low moment.
I mean, it's sort of how I approach the majority of my projects. I work with a lot of young families and people don't always want to go custom or high end on every single piece. So I'm constantly looking at Urban Outfitters, Anthropology, CB2. I mean, I feel like they're great finds.
Totally. That hunt is so part of the fun too.
Mhm.
Okay, well, so we've kind of talked about that main space, and then let's move back into um, your actual office, which is again kind of brings in these green tones, which I do feel like I see. I love like your use of blues and greens. I feel like you do a lot of that in your projects, but like mixing and differentiating, and this just feels so fresh and like you want to get down to business here.
That was really the goal. I feel like that like minty color is kind of just like a jolt of energy in the morning. Especially in like the doldrums of winter to come in here. It does feel very revitalizing. And like it's a color, but it still feels, I don't know, to me, like aqua is like a neutral. Like it just like is one of my favorite colors. I live with it at home. I live with it at my office. I just feel like it's very comfortable for me. And so I wanted this to also feel like a light, fresh room.
I love it. Okay, I have to know because I feel like with office spaces, the office chair is like the bane of everyone's existence. But what is your office chair? It looks cute, but also
Yeah,
comfortable.
I feel like I went deep on office chairs, and at the end of the day, design within reach is still like the name of the game for me. I think this one is called C2, SETU. And I love the green that it comes in. And so I feel like, is it like the most exciting chair in the world? Like, no, but it's very comfortable. It's not like the price of one of the, crazy Eames chairs or whatever. And I like the color range.
Yeah, it kind of like fades into the background, but I feel like
Mhm.
you want it to be comfortable. So that's a good
I've
tip.
definitely bought it for several clients since buying it for myself.
I love it. Okay, so do you store all of your samples and everything in your office space, like in your
No, I have a closet in this main room that I'm in right now, actually, that I converted into like a whole sample closet.
okay. And I love to know. I mean, I worked for many different designers and like have organized many a library, and I feel like it's so fascinating to know how people store their fabric samples. Can you give me a little insight into your approach?
I need to like take on an intern to redo it, honestly, because I feel like it's not like serving me the way that I want it to, but it's broken down by, so it's like solid blue, solid green, printed green. And then I have a wallpaper section and it's like neutral wallpapers, multicolor wallpapers. And they're all in like these little plastic bins from the Container Store and labeled. Um, and so it's organized, but I also feel like there's a world where I should do like a section of like, okay, if you're getting something from Made in Home, all the Made in Home fabrics should be together, or like all the Crate and Barrel fabrics or whatever, because I feel like when I'm looking for that, it's so specific. So anyway, just a thought on my redo.
I love it. I know. It's always, I feel like there's so many different ways you could slice and dice it that you could kind of make yourself crazy, but I find it
Yes.
so fun to know how people go about it. Um, okay, and then let's dive into that other room as well, because you have a third, which I guess is the second bedroom, but that brown
Mhm.
and a darker brown. Yes, which I love. So again, using kind of that same principle of like the solid grass cloth, and then the prints with the shades and everything. So what does this get used for?
It doesn't really get used. Honestly, it's sort of like you can see in the corner my stack of rugs that I brought back from Morocco. This is like my when I source things and don't know what to do with them, they go to this room. But I use the closet in here for my carpet samples. You can see in the wicker bins, I have like wood samples, metal samples, tile samples. And I should go work in here more, but I just love the other room so much. But I was itching to do this kind of like darker, moodier room as sort of, I think, like a reaction against like this room that I'm sitting in. And then the other one is so fresh. And I was like, well, what if I want to be in like a moodier room?
Well, again, though, it's kind of, I mean, it really is in some ways, our last episode was with Julie, who did the San Francisco Decorator Showcase. And in some ways, this really is like a mini showroom, like an extension of your home, but where you can bring people and experiment and show them all those things like the urns and the plants and, the great office chair or whatever else. So I love it. Are those shelves, did those really come green or did you?
They did. They're actually also from Design Within Reach, and they're by, I think it's a Danish brand called Hay, and they are so cheap. You literally put them together with those kind of like bolts, and you can
Wow.
adjust the height of the shelves. And I just feel like they're like the perfect office shelf. I have them in white in the other room too. And it's like the perfect thing for storage if you don't want to like spend a fortune.
Yeah, they're so great because I feel like so often you see the like really, metal, utilitarian, like kind of heavy garagey ones, but this feels like
Sadly, I think they've been discontinued. People ask me about them all the time and I haven't been able to find them, but like keep an eye out. It's called Hay.
maybe they need to bring them back.
Yeah.
I love it. So when you like come in here, just like taking a step back, do you feel like, where do you go to get inspired? Do you kind of sit down at that table and like open books up, or do you like to be in your desk? Do you like thumb through your library? Like, what is that process like for you?
I feel like so much of my inspiration actually comes from like seeing things in person actually. And I'm really lucky that I'm in New York City and have access to museums and showrooms. And so I try to make a point of going to the D&D, and I actually just went to 200 Lex for the first time in way too long, and really seeing things in person. I think also because during COVID, we all were looking at so much on the computer, and I just was like, I am like craving seeing things in person and craving going into stores. So for me, I think that's where most of my inspiration comes from. But I feel like this is where I'm like, okay, the work actually happens. Because I have two kids at home and it's just impossible to get things done there. And it's really nice that I can come here and sort of make a mess and leave it here and be like, okay, it's created a nice separation between my personal life and my work life, because at 5 o'clock, like I am done and I go home and I don't have to have all of my samples in my space. And so I can come here, like throw everything on my desk, sit quietly, turn on my music and just like, get ordering.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and not worry about like tiny little hands taking the Roman shade fabric or
Exactly.
okay, so I'm just dying to kind of dive into what's behind you because I feel like something that you do such a great job of, and you spoke to like how important the layering is. But I think that that's oftentimes where a lot of projects just kind of like stop, whether the client's kind of tired at that point or they have decision fatigue or spending fatigue or whatever. But I think that those like last layers of the accessories and the found is so great, but we can't all always be exploring and shopping and finding. But I feel like you have a really lovely assortment of treasures behind you. And if I'm not mistaken, you do take appointment only shopping appointments in your space. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about like why you decided to do that, if it kind of happened organically or just a little more about that.
So there's sort of like a few things that went into it. Partially, it was also because, like I mentioned, during COVID, I feel like we were all home and I was like, I love to travel. I love to source things from artisans around the world. And I was like, how can I sort of like bring that into my work in a way that doesn't feel like the client has to commit to, ordering this custom thing from Morocco or like a dish or whatever. And so in like 2020, when I launched my firm, I started buying all this stuff from artisans that I had sourced and being like, can you make this special thing for me? Like, can you make it small batch? A lot of these people had never sold their work, had never priced their work. And so I started amassing all of this stuff. And it was really great as a tie-in to my interior design practice, because like you said, all of my clients also get very burnt out at the end. And I feel like it never feels finished without that last layer. And it's so unfortunate because it's like you've gotten to the place where you've gotten all the big things, but actually it's the little things that complete the space. So what I was doing is I would get ready to shoot the project and I have my own inventory of stuff here. I was bringing it in to complete that last layer, and the clients would see it and they would say, I just want to buy it all. Because I think it's really hard to buy accessories when you're like, okay, I have to see each thing and what's the price of each thing. Instead, I was coming in and being like, I will style it all with my inventory and you can keep what you want and send back what you want. So it was a really great add-on to my business. And then other designer friends were like, wait, but I want to somehow sell this stuff to my clients too. And I was like, well, I have this space now. Like what else can I do with it? And so I've opened it up a few times to trunk shows where I'll have like, a friend who's a jewelry designer in one room and a friend who sells children's stuff in another room. And then all of my stuff is for sale. And it's actually been like a really wonderful networking thing with other designers. And I've met clients who've come here to shop, and then sort of like seen my world and like understood my design ethos and ended up hiring me. And so it's been this really great tie-in to my business. And then recently I did this event called the Ticking Tent. And I sold like 80% of my inventory. So now I'm in this place where I'm like, okay, I kind of love that I get to start over. Like, I'm just gonna I think I'm just gonna buy all new things. But it's been a complicated business to figure out because it's sort of like, do I launch a website? A lot of things sell before I can even take a picture of it. They're very one of a kind. They're very artisanal. No two things are really the same. So, that's kind of the story behind it all.
That's amazing. I love it. I'm like filing it all away too. Um, so let's actually dive into, because some of the things that are shown here are in the section that we do kind of this like featured products. And I love to kind of see from like the designer's curated eye what they've pulled. And this like these like terre mêlée plates. I'd love to like hear a little bit more about which I mean that is just so funny because I actually just pulled that image and you have literally the same one. So
Mhm.
you can add them through who you see here, or you can also contact Sarah Lederman directly. So where did you first discover those?
So I met this artist in the south of France who was doing terre mêlée. And he creates a mold. And then, what's really cool about terre mêlée is that the pigments are marbled throughout. So like if you broke this dish open, it's the colors throughout. It's not painted on the surface. And so I was like, how do I sort of like put my own stamp on it? And basically I started working with him to choose which form I wanted to put which of the colors that he was developing. And I worked with him, like he hadn't made candlesticks before. And I was like, let's do candlesticks. And so, it takes a long time to get. I do sometimes do special orders, but for the most part, it's like I sort of think about the curation that I want to have, and then it comes like 6 months later, and then I let everyone take a shot at purchasing it.
Amazing. Okay, and then also those candles. So I had spied that like box behind in that Urban Outfitters sideboard. And I was like, are those books? Like, what is that? Because it has such a cool graphic look to
Yeah.
it. I never heard of those. What's the story behind this?
Um, it is two sisters actually who started this clean burning candle company. And when I was doing my first trunk show, I was like, I feel like it was during the holidays, and I was like, okay, candles are a really good gifting item. And I just feel like the packaging is so much fun. Like it brings me so much joy to like, and they do sort of open like a book. And the really cool thing about them is that they are, in a, Venetian blown glass vessel. And when you burn it down, they actually sell inserts. So you can just get a new insert and pop it back into the glass vessel. So, they're beautiful, they're eco-friendly. There's this sort of like sustainable element to them. Like you don't just toss the container. And they're really good looking and make great gifts. So,
So pretty. I love it. So graphic.
mhm.
Okay, and then the pencil cups, because choosing keeping is like hands down one of my favorite spots in London. And I have to say, I'm not sure that I would have like gravitated towards that particular item when I was in the shop. And then I saw your images and was like, oh my goodness, that's the pencil cups that she has everywhere. I feel like they're just so unique. The way you have them styled, I feel like they were in most all of the rooms.
I have them, I think, in two different colorways. Um, I just am such a like collector of little things. Like I like, of course, can't have my pencils be in just like a normal pencil cup. And so I will go to the ends of the earth to find the thing that I really love. And then again, that's how I just like sort of people come to me for suggestions about stuff like this. And I'm like, yes, of course I know the perfect pencil cup, you know? And like all of my pencils are the same. Like I have like the Blackwing natural wood pencils. Like I just feel like when I come into my office, I want to feel inspired, organized, excited to come to work. And so like all of those little details matter to me.
Totally. I love it. And then the other two items that we have on there are just kind of two of my faves from the things that you chose from Tebow. And I think it's just worth noting since we actually haven't seen it yet, but that fern stripe is in the kitchen in the space, which we hadn't really touched on, but I feel like it's worth pulling up to show the before and after of that because it is quite the transformation for fairly little lift. So we'll hopefully pull up. Okay, so there it is after, which let's just take a moment for that pattern matching between the wallpaper and the Roman shade. That is very well
All about the
executed.
pattern matching, would not have worked without the pattern matching, like chaos without the pattern. There's the before. Uh,
Before.
I mean, I feel like it's a huge transformation. And like you said, not that much was done. Like I didn't change the cabinets. I didn't change the hardware. I didn't change the appliances. I didn't change the fridge. Basically all I did was put wallpaper and that little matching Roman shade, and I put a little, you know, kitchen runner down. And it makes all the difference in the world. And I feel like it just speaks to the transformative power of wallpaper.
Yeah.
And I actually feel like it's like the cutest little kitchen now, even though like it's, you know, seen better days and probably hasn't been renovated since the 80s, but like, you know, it's like white Formica, like it can't even be painted. But it's pretty charming now.
So cute. I love it. Okay, but so also just the logistics of that because you did the Roman shades through Everhem, right? Which
Hmm.
um for those who haven't worked with Everhem, I mean, they're in California, you like they get the fabric. I mean, it's not like having your workroom come into this space, I guess, and like measure and all that. But so who went first, the wallpaper or the Roman, or were you just really clear with them that like,
I was pretty clear about that the pattern needed to be centered over the window and the pattern needed to be centered on the shade. But there, what, you know, Everham, I think, does a good job of sort of holding your hand through, like, I measured for all of these shades myself. And they FaceTimed with me and were like, okay, this is what you need to do. And they definitely were like with us every step of the way. So that made it very easy.
I love it. It's so good. And just like the repeat on that fabric, I mean, I just love a good like clean pattern alignment
And
moment.
like the blue and navy, like, I don't know, there's just something that like says kitchen to me about it.
Really, I love it. Okay, well, I think it's time to dive into Q&A. So let's just see what kind of questions we had come our way. Okay, so yes, I mentioned in my intro that you worked for Bunny Williams, Tom Shearer, and this question is, what words of wisdom did you receive from the designers that you previously worked with?
So I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I feel like both of them really stress the importance of scale and starting with a floor plan. So that has really stuck with me. I start every project by doing a floor plan. I don't even think about really fabrics or what the furniture forms are. I just think about sort of what makes sense on the page. And that's still how I approach all of my projects. Like you'll hear certain people will be like, I always start with a rug. And it's like, I pretty much never start with a rug. But I always start with a floor plan.
I love it. And okay, yes, we'll just go to this one. Okay, so are there any new vendors or manufacturers that you've discovered recently and are loving? Probably a lot since you're going.
Literally so many. Also because I'm about to move and like looking for all the like newest like stuff that I haven't seen over and over. And so I have been on the craziest deep dive on Instagram, like looking for lighting and looking for like sources that are sort of outside of my norm, I feel like. I found this really cool designer who makes lighting out of the UK called Studio, I think it's pronounced Ebury, Ebury. And I just bought the coolest like lantern-y type fixture for my primary bedroom in my new place. So I'm very excited about that. I love Workstead lighting, and they just came out this morning with a new lantern collection, and I'm totally gonna buy one of them.
I love
It's kind of like their own spin on a Noguchi, but made out of raw silk. So that it's beautiful. I'm always looking at a ton of vintage stuff, and whether it's like going to Connecticut and going to the Antique and Artisan Mall, or deep diving on Cherish or First Dibs, like I just feel like I'm constantly looking for cool vintage things. Um, what else have I seen? God, there's so many that I feel like I can't even. But then like, I'll always go back to like Lulin, Georgia. Like I just got an email just now that like Jake Arnold has a new collection with them. And like, I'm right after this gonna go see what that looks like.
I love it.
Yeah,
Okay. What's one of your favorite or one of your favorite things in your office?
this is tricky. I think it's a three-way tie between my screen that has the Italian scenes on it because it's just so like quirky and weird and no one's ever seen one like it. My vintage urn, which is behind me, there's a pair of them and they're so epic and like in scale. And then I just got this pair of vintage rattan French armchairs that I had my upholsterer redo. And like basically he told me that every single designer that came into the workroom while he was doing them tried to purchase them. And I was like, they're not for sale, they're mine.
I love it. Are they for you or for a client?
They're gonna go to my new apartment.
Really exciting. Okay. Do you have any systems or productivity processes that you swear by?
Oh my God, I have so many. I use a program called Studio Designer, which I think a lot of designers use, for my bookkeeping. So that's number one. And then as much as I want to get away from it, I'm a paper girl and I print every order and file it in the order that I think like from like least important to most important in the room. And then in the binder, I go like in the way that I feel like you would move through the house. So like entry to like whatever the room next to that is, to the room next to that, and like work your way upstairs. And so I like do it in the order that in my mind, like is the order of the house. And then in each one, like and this is like the OCD like designer in me, but like each room is sort of like I start with like so it'll start with maybe the rug and then work its way up. And then so it will be like the window treatment and then the fabric. And so I put the orders in that order. And then I put all my strike offs and like CFAs and stuff like in that binder. So it's like if I go to an install and I take that binder, I feel like it's like whatever information is in there. Like I don't have to like search through my email. I just like pull my client binder. And like I think a lot of people are like, how are you not paperless yet? But like I'm just not.
That's okay. Okay. What exciting projects do you have coming up that you can share with us?
Well, I haven't shared this with literally anyone yet, although I mentioned it to you off screen. But I am launching a textile and wall covering collection in the fall, and I'm extremely excited about it. I've had this idea for a really long time, and I just felt overwhelmed by the idea of executing it. But it is in the works and it is all inspired by Greek and Roman architectural references that I've collected over the years.
That is amazing. It's so exciting.
I'm excited.
And you're moving into a new apartment.
I mean, decorating is in full force right now.
But it's almost like, I mean, it can be harder when like, it's your own space, but I don't know, how are you feeling? Are you feeling like overwhelmed with inspiration or just like there's so much going on?
I feel a lot of pressure to like, because I feel like this is my forever home. I hope this is my forever home. To make decisions that I feel like are going to be like very long lasting. So in my current apartment, I have this like very vibrant blue Penny Morrison wallpaper in my dining room, and I'm feeling this like gut instinct to go like more neutral and sort of like almost like a palette cleanser in the new space. And I'm just like, I'm excited to try something new. And my own homes are always like my like laboratory where I try things before I, just do it for the first time for a client. So I'm excited to do all kinds of weird stuff.
I love it. Well, we will stay tuned. I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much for joining us too. This was
Thank
such a treat.
you.
So fun to like be talking about the space that you're really in right now. So thanks for all the insights.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to keep checking out the platform and see what you guys have in store.
Love it. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for joining for this episode. It was such a treat to dive into everything that Sarah has done in that space and hear more about what she's got coming up. So we hope you'll join us for episode 4 coming up later this summer. All right. Thanks so much. Bye.